Okay, welcome back to the last day of the final presentation for the 2023 Berklee Global Jazz Institute class, and I'm very, very happy and excited to present the next student, Julian Miltenberger. Please have a big clap for Julian. Please, Julian. Let me read a little bit about his bio. Julian is a drummer and composer from Philadelphia, and also a BA magna cum laude in music from Harvard University. Former teachers include Giovanni Terry, Terry Lynn Carrington, Ralph Peterson, Neil Smith, Bill Kilson, John Roberts, and Francisco Mela. Julian has performed internationally in countries of Togo, France, Switzerland, Mexico, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Canada. Julian's presentation title is Sound of Philadelphia, and we are happy to welcome to the Cafe 939 his advisor and committee member, Chase Mooring, and Terry Link, Whitney Matlu and Jerry Leak. I'm sorry, Witness and Jerry Leak. Please, a big clap for Jerry and Witness. Sorry. And please help me welcome on stage with a warm applause, Julian Miltenberger.
Wow. Thank you, everybody, for the love. I really feel the love in the room today. Thank you so much. All right. So, without further ado, hello, everybody. My name is Julian Miltenberger. I'm a master's candidate at the Berklee Global Jazz Institute, and this is my culminating experience project, Sounds of Philadelphia, exploring a city's musical lineage through creative and spontaneous composition. So, why Philadelphia, you might ask? Philadelphia is a city on the east coast of the United States, founded by William Penn in 1682 as a safe haven for practitioners of all religions. The city had the necessary infrastructure to support music performances early on in its history. While many musical traditions thrived in Philadelphia throughout the ensuing years, I choose to focus my presentation today specifically on Black American music traditions due to their huge impact on music around the world, as well as in alignment with the Global Jazz Institute's mission of learning music through an Afrocentric lens. So, Black music in Philadelphia dates back to the colonial era with notable composers such as Frank Johnson, who was the first American of any race to lead a musical ensemble on a European tour. However, the city really became a notable hub for Black American music in the years following World War I. After the U.S. government imposed stricter immigration laws, demand for urban labor in the North provided financial opportunities from first and second generation emancipated Black Americans in the South. Cities such as Philadelphia, New York, Detroit, and Chicago received a massive influx of working class Black people in a process known as the Great Migration. From 1910 to 1930, Philly's Black population almost tripled, with over half the city's Black residents coming from just 4 southern states. With this massive influx of southern Black migrants, Philadelphia became an important hub for Black American music. #BAM for short. This is a term coined by BGJI visiting artist Nicholas Payton. It combines jazz, popular music, rock and roll, R&B, which are all categories invented to sell records, into a single denomination that directly credits the Black musical innovators who both enabled and defied such genre labels. One example was the great John Coltrane, whose family moved from North Carolina to Philadelphia in 1943, and his house is still in North Philadelphia. There's a picture of it up on the board right here. Coltrane's legendary quartet included 2 other native Philadelphians, McCoy Tyner, the pianist, and Jimmy Garrison, the bassist. And here's a picture of the 3 of them right there. Some other examples of Philly musicians whose families moved from the South were the Heath brothers, Jimmy, Percy, and Albert, also known as Tootie Heath, as well as this gentleman right here, John Burks Gillespie, who lived in Philadelphia for 2 years, starting at age 18, and during this time earned his nickname Dizzy. This connection is very special because, as many of you know, Dizzy was a formative mentor for our artistic director, Danilo Perez, with whom we've had the great privilege to study this year. Since Philadelphia, with its thriving music scene, was a popular destination for touring artists, many famous musicians were quote-unquote discovered in Philly, such as Lee Morgan by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, and Philly Joe Jones, who joined Miles Davis's first great quintet. Pictured here is Trudy Pitts, who popularized the Hammond B3 organ, which is now considered a staple sound of Philadelphia jazz. Originally a virtuosic concert pianist, Pitts was introduced to the jazz organ tradition by her lifelong partner and musical collaborator, Bill Carney, or Mr. C as he was known. He was a drummer. Here is a photo of his group around the year 1952, and you see in the photo on the left is Tootie Heath. In the center is Shirley Scott, who is another incredible organist from Philadelphia. At the top is Mr. C, and on the right is a young John Coltrane. This was in 1952. Philly was also a formative origin point for the sound of rock and roll. Chubby Checker, who is the creator of the famous song and dance The Twist, if you've ever heard that song, was also from Philadelphia. Now, in the late 1960s, soul music was taking over the radio waves in Philadelphia and across the country. Movements for racial justice and civil rights were giving way to a new form of popular music, politically conscious and proud of its African-American roots. Soul music in Philly at this time had such a characteristic quality that it became known as the Philadelphia sound. One of the innovators of this sound was the drummer named Earl Young, whose powerful four-on-the-floor drum beat and driving hi-hats eventually led to the popular disco movement a decade later. Two prolific songwriters, Kenneth Gamble and Leon Huff, created Philadelphia International Records in 1971, releasing more than 170 gold and platinum albums in just over 10 years. One particular song they wrote was entitled TSOP, short for The Sound of Philadelphia. It was recorded by MFSB, the record label's house band, which had Earl Young on the drums, as well as the vocal group The Temptations. I based my project off of this song in particular, not just because of the title, but because it was collectively written. So here we have a musical example of a democratic consensus. Well over a dozen people contributed to the formation of this song, and the result is a classic hit that serves as a great starting point to discuss the Philadelphia sound. Here's a short clip of the song. Cool. So, TSOP has been recorded many times since its original release in 1974. One of my favorite versions is a solo piano interpretation by Philadelphia pianist and composer Orrin Evans that I actually heard years ago without knowing that it was the same song. Taking inspiration from this interpretation of the piece, I decided to compose a 3-part suite based off of TSOP. My goal was to keep the melody intact, but reimagine the harmony and the groove using composition techniques I learned at Global. I want to reiterate the message that I first heard in TSOP, which is a celebration of Philadelphia's creative output into the greater music world, but also to do it through a modern lens and compose music that invites collective improvisation, or comprovisation, as we call it here. I hope you enjoy. That was movement 1. Here's movement 2. And then here's just a short bit of the third movement from the ending.
Let's get it on. It's time to get down. Let's get it on. It's time to get down. Let's get it on. It's time to get down. Let's get it on. Oh, it's time to get down. Let's get it on. It's time to get down. Yeah, let's get it on. It's time to get down. Let's get it on. It's time to get down. Let's get it on. It's time to get down.
Yes, and that's Kayla Arthur from Philly on the vocals. All right, so another area that forms the basis for the sounds of Philadelphia that I learned about during my research is the signature style of Philly tap dancing. Ian Berg, our resident tap dancer here at BGJI, showed me an amazing documentary called Plenty of Good Women Dancers. This film spotlights several black women tap dancers from Philadelphia who, despite their exceptional abilities, never received large-scale recognition for their work. I took some footage from the documentary and paired it with an improvised duet that I recorded with Ian, supplemented with some pieces of biographical information. I hope this encourages you all to check out the documentary in its entirety on YouTube and to learn more about these incredible tap dance artists and their legacies. All right, so I am very, very excited about the future of this project. I think that I'm just at the beginning of a long journey exploring the musical history of my hometown, and this presentation was a great incentive to compose the first chapter. As this project continues to evolve, I hope to tackle other important areas of Philadelphia's music history. I didn't even address the musical movements spearheaded by Grover Washington or by The Roots and Jill Scott, nor did I cover more recent developments in hip-hop and electronic dance music. I also plan on investigating lineages of bata and djembe drumming in Philadelphia to further emphasize the city as a global hub of Afro-diasporic music. I would love to share this information in any way possible through performances and teaching workshops for local students. During my high school years, I had the great privilege of studying in the creative music program under Anthony Tidd, which was a free-of-cost music education resource that has since disappeared due to lack of funding and administrative support. In the long term, it's a dream of mine to bring this program back with Mr. Tidd's help and to reconstruct the curriculum to center Philadelphia music history. Beyond this educational application, I want to continue to spread the sounds of Philly to listeners in New York City and around the world as a band leader and performer, in that ambassadorial spirit we love here at the Global Jazz Institute. So thank you very much. Yes. Thank you so much to Danilo Perez, to Marco Pignataro, to Patricia Zarate, my advisor, Witness Matlu, my committee member, Jerry Leek, my engineer, Gerson Lazo, Oren and Godwin for their help and input on this project, Katie for all her support. Thanks to the incredible musicians, Samuel, Salim, Amauri, Esli, Ian, Kayla, and Ian Berg. Thank you to my family and friends, and especially to my family, all of you at the Global Institute. It's really been such an honor to learn and grow alongside you all during this journey. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, Julian.
Thanks, Marco.
Such a beautiful presentation. Would you mind talk a little bit about your music process?
Of course, I'm happy to. I was wondering if you'd ask. So, for the TSOP suite, I reinterpreted sections of the melody from the original piece, pairing them with different harmonic and rhythmic concepts. Firstly, I changed the feeling of the melody into a 12/8 meter, which opens the avenues of possibility for changing the pulse from 2 to 3, 4, 6, etc. I also used bass movement to shift from the major key of the piece into the relative minor, and all of these things allowed the harmony rhythmically. It allowed the melody and the piece in general to just breathe more, I felt, and the solo sections were open to interpretation in a way that I hoped would allow for the creation of windows, which is a concept we learn about here in Global, kind of jumping off points punctuated by arrivals within the form, sort of moments of zero gravity within an overall structure. This piece was influenced greatly by the Brian Blade Fellowship Band. I've been really digging that sound this year. So in terms of the sound, the sense of freedom, and the orchestration as well, with 2 horns, guitar, piano, bass, and drums. So in the second part of the suite, I was inspired to write it in the 11/8 meter, influenced by my experience this past March, workshopping Michael Brecker's Bulgarian suite with Ben Wendell, our guest artist. This was a really amazing experience for me and for some of the folks in the audience as well. And the Brecker brothers, to me, are an integral part of the Philadelphia sound. And I love that Michael Brecker was searching for kind of global connections in music all the way up until his passing. He was always looking for more. And the piece was also influenced heavily by Godwin Louis, who was my private teacher in the spring semester and somebody I look up to greatly as a musician and band leader. He had me study some 4-voice Bach chorales this past semester, and that inspired the counterpoint between the 2 horns, the guitar, and the piano. And then in the tap dance duet, Ian and I were creating completely in the moment. But that being said, we still found common unisons, as Joe Lovano might say, and we tried to move together to create sections and form in the moment. And this is kind of one of the many definitions of compromising, which is what we learn about here at Global. And one of the ways that I did this as well was to explore the texture of the brushes on the toms, not only to create a textural contrast with Ian, but also to create a percussive melody within the piece and to use the actual pitch content of the drums to create a melody, which is something that I've been encouraged to explore here, and I'm going to keep exploring it in the future. And then finally, use of tetrachords, which this is, I audited Chase's harmonic considerations class in the fall, and all throughout the year, Danilo had these amazing workshops where we would learn about this concept, and I wanted to try and incorporate it in the piece. So this is an introduction for the third movement that I'm going to play for you shortly, and it's a little hard to see on the screen, but basically there's a build-up, kind of the second half of what you're seeing here, and in that build-up, there's a bunch of lines. The different voices are developing a melody, but the guitar is outlining, at first it outlines a G-sharp minor tetrachord, just the 4 notes right in a row, then a G-sharp major, and then a G-sharp augmented. So what that's doing is it's brightening by 1 degree each time that the guitar reiterates that melody. And not only does it create that brightening harmonic effect through the passage, but when you're combining that with the crescendo, raising the dynamics, adding the orchestrational choices of the drums starting to build in, which you'll all hear in a moment, for me, I wanted to create kind of more of an emotional effect, which is a feeling of arrival and awakening for the last movement of the piece. So I'll play it. You can try to read along. It might be a little tough to read, but this is what I was talking about. So here's the build-up with the brightening. Cool. So yeah, it was really an amazing process for me this year. As a drummer, I've had many opportunities to compose, but I've never been a part of a program like this where it's really the central focus is band leading and composing. And it's been an honor to learn from so many amazing composition teachers, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you all so much.
Ooh. Yeah. I'm glad I asked that question. See?
Me too.
All right, so let's open up for comments and a question from the panels. And as per the tradition, we're going to start with your committee member guest, Maestro Jerry Leake.
Thank you, Julian. I have words of love to share, but I might keep it brief. But just congratulations on everything you've done in the program and the dual major at Harvard and all the close connections you've made and the friends and your compassion, generosity to your fellow students, and especially your work in my class, the skill you brought, the attitude, the abilities, and it was just a great way to start the day. And also, I respect your changing one of your tunes into the 12/8 to create a more fluid flow with the music, and that certainly inspired me to work with you on some of the larger structures, the 24/8s. And so I want you to keep exploring the idea of African groove with Indian mathematics and larger time cycles, because it really creates this lovely cascade and just a larger umbrella of the flow of time. One thing you have that's so amazing is your skill and ability. I mean, you are, young students, they're pretty much imitating before they can innovate, and that's a common thing, playing from their hands and their head and less from their heart. You're at a level now where you're innovating. So I think that's very commendable. For your young age, I think that's really spectacular, and I just can't wait to hear more of your work as you progress. Now, one thing I did also want to mention is, I talk about, so in other words, if it ain't broken, you go right ahead and break it. So this is the world we're in. And about your music, the drums were understated to me in the mix, but I think that was really tastefully done, and it created more of a three-dimensional layering that we could almost feel the sculpture of the sound in the different spaces. Bravo on that. And there's a very lyrical quality in the beginning. I was wondering if you tried out lyrics or voices in the very first movement, was it? Did you explore that a little bit? I know it's at the end, but and does the original tune have lyrics?
Yeah, so the original tune, it's actually funny. This piece, TSOP, it was originally written for the TV show Soul Train. And so that main melody, there's an alternate recording where they're saying Soul Train, Soul Train. So I wanted to go with the original. The original, the one that I first heard, is instrumental through the piece, and then there's this chorus at the end, which is let's get it on, the line that Kayla was singing. So I did explore vocals through the piece, and I definitely want to experiment more with writing lyrics.
I know you're a very good singer, too. So as we talk about some of your innovations on the drum set, don't forget that as an instrument, as a voice. You got it. I've got video of you doing it, so that's the proof. So
I appreciate the encouragement.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doors where you can open in world percussion without adding more hardware and equipment to your setup, more schlep, keeping the same footprint. Ideas that came to mind is because you got the percussion skills. Cajon as a drum throne, bring that in, mic that up. Small frame drums like a Ben Duran or Rick, you can place on the toms and play those with rods and other light sticks, really broadening the percussion array. And I was glad to see you demonstrating on our Zoom yesterday your ability to play congas. So you have the hand percussion thing that's in development, and I love it. Just one question. How do you find yourself incorporating and applying some of the concepts that Danilo and myself, perhaps in the 6/8, 12/8 world? How do you approach that? Because you have a lot of freedom in your playing, but I know the discipline is really backing up the freedom, you know, like models and development, but then you let it all kind of flow out of you and really into the no mind, which is beautiful because, you know, we don't hear the academic side of it. It's all so musical and tasteful. But what is your little hint of your process to develop that material, to find the freedom?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much, Jerry, for your kind words. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I think regarding the sort of 12/8 feeling and developing the comfortability around it, it definitely helped me a lot being in your class and also being in the Tuesday night workshops. There was kind of a concept that would repeatedly come up sort of about, you know, there's you could call it the big three, or I like to think of it more as like moving the floor around, which is to actually adjust the pulse. Instead of adjusting a melody to fit with a new pulse, you're adjusting the pulse to fit with the same melody. Right. So when I took this melody, dee, 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 like that, it, you know, you can
just speaks.
Step 4 underneath that, you know, like but then also to be able to feel that at the same time, like
and clap a 4 on top of that. Now shake it.
No. All right. You get the point. The classes are all like that, by the way, if you've ever been. But the point of this is, and this is also a concept that when we were in Basel, Switzerland, as part of the week of exchange with the Focus Year program, earlier in, I want to say it was October, we attended a masterclass with Lionel Lueke, and he spoke about the same thing, about how he said when he's soloing, he actually has multiple levels of pulse operating at the same time in his mind, and the bass, kind of the fundamental harmonic, if you want to call it that, is that big group of 3.
Right.
So this is connecting back to different concepts of time that come from indigenous music from different parts of West Africa, in which time is more viewed as a cycle with different landing points within the cycle, as opposed to just this linear thing with form and hits and bars that you need to box in. So that was a concept that I've definitely explored and been able to grow with during my time here.
Let me hand it off, but let me finish by saying your tap dancing accompaniment, unbelievable, so beautiful. You're really getting into this flow without measure perspective where you're not adhering to a bar line. You have the beat, you have the pulse, but then you're allowing the shapes and the geometry to kind of take shape in the moment and really not worrying about the rest. So that's a lovely perspective and philosophy. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jerry.
Next.
Thank you, Jerry. Your advisor, Witness Matlu.
Thank you, Marco. Julian, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job. It's just so great to see how, you know, it all started, to have been there to witness where it all started, and where it's at, like where it started, how it's going. And
yes, indeed.
I'm curious on how, you know, it's going to go. And we talked about how, you know, going forward, you know, you can go many directions with it. Thank you for, you know, the way you presented it and the materials, the way they were presented. It was very organized. And the title, I love the title, The Sounds of Philly, a Democratic Consensus. Pretty cool. And, you know, you've taken us through the history and the, you know, through the Great Migration on the research part of your project, to the musical vibrancies within Philly, focusing on Black musical innovators. And I'm glad the way you've highlighted, you know, most of the names that we know, and there's more to it. I see this go in many directions in the future, where you can, you know, end up going and doing an ethnography in Philly, or even a case study on one specific artist. You've mentioned people that we've also didn't hear of, such as Trudy Pitts and also Baby Edith. which I think, you know, you can also go and like really dig deep on that one individual. Would love to, you know more. This is for the future.
Of course.
Yeah. In line with the BGJI, this fall in pretty good in line with the mission of the Institute. You've helped us reflect on the prominence of music in political activism, of social movements, and its contribution to the processes of identity within the Black community and dealing with issues in society. Coltrane had done that too with his music, and you know you've made us aware that the band that created the soundtrack that we all love was also very aware of what was happening in society, especially during the civil rights movement. Yes, absolutely. I would love to see that in the future. What direction you go, I would encourage you to look into some research methods within the social science. Political science is another, you know, dimension on music and democracy, music and how you could really highlight what was happening, maybe the Great Migration itself, or maybe during the civil rights movement, what was happening, what were the musicians from Philly reflecting on, you know, on society through their work. Yes, absolutely. And I would love to hear you share with us. You had talked to me a little bit about, there was a thought on education when you go back into Philly, how you would, you know, contribute to, you know, helping as far as education in the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Witness. I've really appreciated your support through this. And yeah, I mentioned it briefly, but this creative music program in Philadelphia was such an amazing resource for me. Of course, there are also other historic venues of music education, such as the Clef Club of Jazz and Performing Arts and Settlement Music School, which I attended as well when I was in high school. But I think the special thing for me about the creative music program was that we were, you know, I was probably 15 or something when I started, and here we were digging into really, really intense music. We were getting into drum chants, we were exploring music of like Steve Coleman, Jerry Allen, some of these different composers from the 90s and 80s, 90s that you don't normally get exposed to until years of going through a jazz curriculum. And that was thanks to Anthony Tidd, as well as Sumi Tanuka and Maria Grand were two other amazing teachers that were there. So I think to have that resource, and it was free of cost, so to have that resource available for students, I think is really important. And if we can throw in some kind of historical education to that as well, I think it could really bolster this already flourishing young generation of musicians that are coming out of Philadelphia, because it's a very rich city, and I just want to be able to do my part to nourish that in the ways that I can. Yeah.
Thank you, Witness. Professor Anastasia Petrova, you have some comment?
Yes, congratulations. This was beautiful. I mean, everything I've heard you do so far is very, very musical and leaving a lot of space for others to express themselves and creating very respectful environment for everyone to chime in. I wanted to say thanks for mentioning Trudy Pitts, because not even organ players, they haven't heard of her. And then it's a really true pity, because she's absolutely wonderful. She's one of my favorites. Her husband that duo is a power duo. Yeah. Just them, organ and drums. Very powerful. And my question is, would you consider in the future recording an album that is not a tribute necessarily to the lineage, but rather a reflection of your experience in Philadelphia and your, basically how you feel about Philadelphian history from a composer's standpoint and drummer's standpoint?
Absolutely. I think that's the next step. I've been really privileged and lucky to have a strong kind of academic experience. I did my undergrad and went right into this master's program, and I've used this time to kind of try to gather information and knowledge about a lot of the different musical traditions that I've fallen in love with and the musical traditions that shaped me, like growing up in Philadelphia. So I think now definitely the next step is to look forward creatively. And this is something I've talked about with Danilo and with other teachers, is how to find your own sound through all of this. And also talking to Jerry about, mixing percussion, just trying to innovate in that way while at the same time staying grounded in this background and this lineage that I'm drawing upon. So yeah, I would love to do that, and I think it'll happen sooner than later. So
Great.
Yeah, be on the lookout.
Thank you, Anna. Lihi?
Yeah.
I actually wrote a few things, Julian.
Yeah.
I think you do first of all, congratulations on excellent presentation. And there is so much, you do everything with such respect, and you really, I can see you took the time and the work to investigate this. You have such a balance of simplicity and complexity, sophistication and playfulness, and like Jerry said, your skill and your attitude, both of them in such a high level. And you're also such a good leader and follower. You really balance all those things very well. Also, comment that is not academic at all. You really bring the fun wherever you are, and
Thanks,
make the world around you better everywhere you come. It's been a privilege to have you in the class and to work with you this year. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet.
Professor Chase.
Julian, all right.
Yes, sir.
I think you mentioned it already, but I remember you came beginning of the year to audit the harmonic considerations class, and I don't even think the students realized at first that you weren't supposed to be there. They thought you were part of the class, doing all the same homeworks and being honest and humble enough to be like, oh, this is hard, I'm struggling, and I think you paved a way.
Still am, yeah.
And you paved a way for them to gather that spirit of like, oh, okay, I guess Julian's having a hard time and he's in the master's program. I guess we can all be comfortable with that, and that let a door open for everybody. So I just want to commend you on that. You have that ability to be honest and humble. But don't remember, just, you can be humble, but you can also recognize what you bring to the table, which you're bringing a lot of very special things. Beautiful compositions. I think you've just improved incredible amounts this past year with your compositions. The chorale writing, the counterpoint, all of this stuff. It's very sophisticated, and I just encourage you to keep on going that direction because you have some special things to say in that avenue. For just a few tiny bit comments, I think the mix, it was the bass drum in particular was kind of heavy a little bit, at least in these speakers. Mm-hmm. So just work on the mix, and I think the music's going to really, really shine from that. Also, I might have misheard, but I think you said something about collective improv and how that was comprovisation. Those two aren't quite the same. So just little tiny things to investigate in terms of the nomenclature of things.
Of course, yeah.
But that was all I wrote. And for me, man, like what Lihi said, you bring such a beautiful lightheartedness, fun, playful spirit to everything. And that really, both of my classes that you took, actually, that just brought everything to life. And I could see it in your peers. You really create an atmosphere for everyone to enjoy and have fun and experiment and be authentic with themselves. And I just appreciate that so much about you. So thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure.
Man, thank you, Chase. I really appreciate it.
Professor Nadia.
Hello.
Hello.
First, I'd like to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful compositions. Wonderful development. But I must have to be honest with you. There, I feel, is... I appreciate you sharing these untold stories that people may not heard. Some people, I haven't heard some of these names. I really appreciate that you are telling the story, right? And you're sharing the sounds of where you come from, right? But I just want to, I think it would be a disservice for me to withhold certain, what I'm about to say.
Yeah, of course.
And I just want you to be mindful that make sure that as you share the sound and lineage of your town, that you utilize and incorporate people that are alive, that are around, that created the sound. And that we are careful with how we share the history, so that we don't miss out on the actual, the voices that were part of the gestation. And you know what I'm alluding to, of the visibility of our African American people that created this sound, incorporating that community involved so they can speak on the music as well.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And just a few little hints on even the way we presented ourselves. I would have loved to have heard the sound of the tap dancer. I wanted to hear her gait and her sound.
Yes.
And of course, based upon that, then hear how Ian stepped in. But to see and hear Ian while seeing her, that was, I'm being honest, it was a little triggering. We have to be very careful with how we express a story from a peoples that constantly deal with appropriation, constantly dealing with keeping hold of their traditions and not having the voice or the opportunity to say that I was there when. Okay? So I just want to because I know that it's not coming from a place of, you're not coming from a wrong or a bad place, but I just want you to be mindful of how you present and who you include in that presenting, because we need to hear about it, and it is a part of your sound. All right? But other than that, congratulations. And I know you care about the music. It's your filtration of the Philadelphia sound, not necessarily the sound of Philadelphia. That comes with a great heavy responsibility to say that.
Yes.
So congrats, and I can't wait to see what you do with this project in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nadia. And you bring up a really important point, which is that it's important to not only try to tell and interpolate stories, but to really actually bring out the voices of the creators themselves. So I think we'll discuss this further, but one thing that maybe comes to mind potentially could be an interview series where we actually bring in the voices and the stories of some of these musicians. And I spoke to some musicians over the phone. I had the really amazing opportunity to speak a little bit with Orrin Evans and to talk with him about my project, but maybe to even bring an interview aspect into this, so that it's not just me telling the story, it's the community and some of these creators telling the stories. Yes, so I really appreciate that that learning opportunity that you're presenting here. And again, and with the video as well, to share the audio from the video, which, by the way, just to reiterate, the documentary is on YouTube, so you can all hear, it's about an hour-long feature, and you can hear all of these amazing dancers interviewed and telling their stories, as well as another interview with the great LaVon Robinson, who is another great Philadelphia tap dancer who helped to mentor some of them. So yeah, if you're able to, it's on YouTube. It's called Plenty of Good Women Dancers. So, but yeah, I really appreciate it, Nadia. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I just quick? We are a little short of time, so let me go. It's congratulations. Just want to ask you 3 questions that you can summarize what you want. Okay, but beautiful music and another thing on a personal note. You're one of the most consistently positive young person I've ever met in my life, and it's not just a reason why you are one of the most sought after drummer global. I don't know in many projects you've been, but it's not just what you bring as a player, but you also, I want to praise your personality and how beautiful it's been to have you in this community this year. So congratulations for that.
Thanks, Marco.
And talking about the community, I would like to know what the community did for you in terms of your development this year, and also as a person that loves Philadelphia and I goes there a lot, in your estimation, what is the present scene look like in Philly? And what about those sounds that you bring with you as a musician here in Boston and everywhere you go? So
Yeah.
3 little questions.
Well, thank you for the question, and I'm not sure. I'll try to answer them all. I've mainly heard the last one. In terms of the sound of Philadelphia today, and the way that I bring it here. Okay, so, well, first of all, I just want to say it's been a really great experience being a part of this community. I think I've had so many resources to draw upon during my time at Global, and as a result of that, I've grown in multiple different ways. I've been able to learn from, horn players, pianists, bassists, all these different sort of musical roles that I can learn from a lot as a drummer to be able to contribute better to an ensemble. Also from engineers, learning from educators about how to teach. So that just in itself has been like a very well-rounded learning experience for me. And then in terms of the sound of Philadelphia today, I think there's a lot of really amazing music coming out of Philadelphia today. I think people are starting to take certain traditions which in the past, again, due to this kind of capitalist-driven genre labeling, kind of separated some different traditions, are now, I think, being combined in new and very exciting ways. There's an artist that I look up to a lot named Emmanuel Wilkins, who is fusing, sounds of gospel music, sounds of jazz, and as well as like his most recent album had a Ghanaian drumming ensemble. I believe Farafina Khan from DC on the album. So he's taking all of these different traditions which have existed within Philadelphia, but maybe not together sonically, and putting them together. So I think that's a really exciting new direction. And it just takes people who are doing the work to historically understand what's going on and to really get inside of learning all of these different sounds. So yeah, it's just work continues, and yeah, we know there's gonna be some great music in the future.
Congratulations,
So,
Julian.
yeah.
Great.
Julian. Julian, great work. It's been fantastic working with you, and it was easy to when I met you. You always came from that place of respect, learning, tradition. And, I have a question. I think the point that Nadia brought to the table had to do with that question. What stand we take when we do things like that, as a narrator, as a representing of this community, or as an ambassador? So I think you did a great job in terms of narrating, in terms of but there's a lot more to do, and I will invite you to, at the core of this global leadership that you're taking upon, I would connecting, creating, and contributing are three of the things that are very important. Also, the taking that leadership role. Leaders who possess a global mindset are able to interpret and decode situations from multiple, even competing points of view. And it would be nice to hear, because Philly, I work in Philly for many years, and there's so many points of view that I would like to see, and this would add a lot in it. You have created a topic for your lives, a chapter. There's one question I have for you. After exploring the sounds of Philadelphia in this way, how does that change the definition for you of what jazz means?
That's a really great question. And I think for me, what it comes down to is that, growing up, especially attending universities and music programs, there's kind of something that is taught to a lot of students in this kind of, how do I want to say it? Like kind of blocking in eras and styles and approaches into these sort of, during this decade, this is what happened, and during this decade, this is what happened, and this is what we're going to call this movement. But really learning about some of the individual stories of the Philadelphia musicians, as well as exploring the careers of amazing creative musicians in general, like digging deeper into the music of Wayne Shorter this year, for example, it really shows you how the human aspect of the music is the most important thing, and the community, because, for example, in Mr. Shorter's career, he went through, you know, what, like, if people tried to categorize what he did, it would be impossible, because he went through so many different stages of his musical development over the course of his career. So with Philadelphia, it's kind of the same way. It comes down more to understanding the lives and the communities of all of the people that made up this sound, rather than trying to describe the sound in a way. So I think, again, off of what Nadia said, I think maybe exploring an interview series could be a really great way to broaden these stories and to share them around. And yeah, and just to view jazz as you know, even from the global interview, we talked about this, to explore it more as this Pan-American tradition that is ever growing and ever evolving, and it was created and will always be nurtured by real people, and you know, it's not something to just label or just describe based off of a sound that you hear. So yeah, I think learning about Philadelphia in a way was kind of a microcosm for approaching everything for me. So yeah, learning about these individual legacies and the relationships and the community environment, I think that was really big for me.
Yes, and I encourage you to use the word black on it.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, of course.
Black, Afrocentric, Pan-African.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, remember we talk about the instrument. You have a homework for me.
Yeah, we talked about this.
So much, it happens to me. I was listening to him and I hear him playing. He's so studious in everything he does. And one day I heard him playing the drums, and he started to play all these sounds that come from the percussion, actually. And I had this epiphany saying, I think you should invent a new instrument, because, and I think that's what Jerry was tapping into.
Exactly.
So that's my homework in the future. Congratulations, and the work has been a privilege working with you. Such a kind man, such a, you know, very consistent and hungry for knowledge. And continue like that, and keep remembering that it's not about styles of music. It's about finding the connection in the African diaspora and all the family that has been taking in different directions and connecting them back. Mm-hmm. And you coming into full terms that this is the essence of what we do, the music that separates European tradition from the Americas. Okay? Continue, congratulations, and go and change the world.
Oh, thank you so much.
Julian Miltenberger.
Thank you, everybody.
Woo! Congratulations.